From above, it looks like an eye staring up from the ocean floor, a perfect circle of deep blue, surrounded by shallow turquoise water, sitting off the coast of Belize like something that was placed there deliberately. 300 meters wide, 120, 5 meters deep, and almost completely dark from the inside. Divers have been descending into it for decades. Some of them did not come back. Their remains were found at the bottom, preserved in water so oxygen depleted that decomposition had stopped. Researchers who went to document what was down there came back with something they had not gone looking for, a sonar reading from deep inside the hole that no one on the expedition could explain. That reading has never been formally addressed. Before we go further, if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. The Great Blue Hole has been declared one of the greatest dive sites on Earth. It has been photographed from space, mapped by submarines, and visited by thousands of people every year. What those visits have produced cumulatively is a list of findings that the scientific record has noted, filed, and quietly declined to resolve. But the deepest secret isn't the skeletons. It is what sonar detected far below them. The Great Blue Hole sits approximately 70 kilometers off the coast of Belize. In the middle of the Lighthouse Reef Atoll, it is circular. It is deep, and its geometry is precise enough that when NASA photographed it from orbit, researchers noted it looked less like a natural formation and more like something engineered. Jacques Cousteau visited in 1971 and declared it one of the most extraordinary dive sites on the planet. What subsequent expeditions found inside it has never been fully explained. The water gets dark very quickly. Below 90 meters, it becomes something else entirely. Number 10. The perfect circle. Most sinkholes are irregular. Collapse events, the geological process that forms them, are chaotic by nature. Rock gives way unevenly. Walls fracture at different rates. The resulting shape is determined by whatever weakness in the substrate gave out first. Nature does not typically produce circles. The Great Blue Hole is almost perfectly circular, 300 meters across, with a margin of deviation so small that early aerial surveys flagged the geometry as anomalous before anyone had descended into it. The walls drop vertically from the surface, which is itself unusual. Sinkhole walls typically taper or slope as depth increases. These do not. They descend straight down at consistent angles, in a shape that the standard model of karst collapse does not cleanly account for. Geologists have proposed that the hole formed during the last ice age, when sea levels were lower and the limestone shelf was exposed to rainfall and erosion. The circular shape, on this explanation, reflects a particularly uniform dissolution of the underlying rock, a process that proceeded evenly in all directions from a central point. The problem is that uniform dissolution at that scale, producing geometry that precise, has not been documented in any comparable karst formation anywhere else on Earth. The walls also suggest something that the surface geometry does not prepare you for. They do not end at the mapped floor. The angles, when extended, imply a continuation, chambers below the surveyed depth that no dive has yet confirmed or ruled out. What is beneath the floor of the Blue Hole has not been characterized, and if the structure extends further than the maps show, then everything recorded inside it so far has been recorded in the entrance. Number 9. The nitrogen ceiling. Every diver who has descended into the Blue Hole encounters the same problem at the same depth. At approximately 40 meters, nitrogen narcosis begins. It does not announce itself clearly. It arrives as a subtle shift, a loosening of judgment, a slowing of decision, making a dreamlike quality to the water around you that feels, in the moment, less like impairment and more like clarity. Experienced divers describe it as the sensation of being completely calm in a situation that should not feel calm at all. Below 60 meters, it becomes something closer to hallucination. The significant findings inside the Blue Hole, the stalactites, the hydrogen sulfide layer, the unmapped lower chambers, exist below the depth at which human cognition becomes unreliable. Every observation made at those depths was made by a mind already operating under chemical influence. Every report filed by a diver who descended that far was written by someone whose perceptions at the critical moment were not fully their own. That is not a fringe concern. It is a documented physiological fact that the Blue Hole's most important zone sits precisely where human judgment is least trustworthy. Several divers who turned back mid-descent, who made the correct decision to ascend before narcosis became became dangerous, have reported in separate accounts
Experienced
seeing
divers
movement in the
describe it
water
as the
below them
sensation
as they
of being
pulled away.
completely-
Not the movement of their own equipment, something in the water beneath them, in the dark, below the depth they had reached. Their support teams, monitoring from above, recorded nothing on the line cameras at those moments. What they saw, or did not see, has no entry in any formal record. The blue hole hides an invisible layer below that depth that looks like underwater clouds. Almost nothing survives beneath it. Number 8. The hydrogen sulfide layer at approximately 90 meters. The water changes, not in temperature, not in pressure, in visibility, and in something harder to define than visibility. Divers who have reached this depth describe the moment of contact with the hydrogen sulfide layer as crossing a threshold rather than passing through a gradient. Above it, the water is dark but clear. Below it, there is something that looks under dive lights, like a ceiling of pale fog suspended in the ocean, horizontal, still stretching in every direction as far as the light carries. It is not fog, it is a dense accumulation of hydrogen sulfide gas, toxic, oxygen, depleting, and present at a concentration that kills most biological life on contact. Below it, the water contains almost no dissolved oxygen. The environment beneath that layer is, by the standard definition, a dead zone. What it should not be is active. The chemical composition of the layer has been measured across multiple expeditions separated by years. The readings have not been consistent. The concentration shifts, the density varies. The boundary between the layer and the water above it has been documented at slightly different depths on different dives in ways that passive accumulation of a static gas does not account for. Something below the layer is affecting it. A biological process, a geological process, or a combination of both. Researchers have proposed each of these explanations without reaching consensus on any of them. The layer is also, notably, the last point at which downward visibility exists inside the blue hole. Below it, dive lights do not penetrate. What the sonar has returned signals from, beneath that pale toxic fog, has never been seen by human eyes. Scientists expected to find rock formations below it. Instead, they uncovered evidence that completely changed the history of this place. Number 7. The stalactites that should not exist. Stalactites do not form underwater. That is not a matter of debate or interpretation. It is a basic condition of their chemistry. They grow from calcium carbonate deposits left by dripping water in air-filled caves, one slow layer at a time, over thousands of years. The process requires atmosphere. It requires the absence of water at the point of formation. Finding stalactites submerged inside an underwater cave does not mean the geology is unusual. It means the cave was not always underwater. Inside the blue hole, stalactites hang from the walls at depths of 40 meters and below. Some are over 2 meters long. They are well formed, clearly defined, and in several cases oriented at angles that are not vertical. The non-vertical ones are what stop the researchers. A stalactite grows downward, pulled by gravity in a straight line. It records the direction of gravitational pull at the time of its formation, as precisely as any instrument. A tilted stalactite means that either gravity changed or the structure it was growing inside shifted after the stalactite had already formed, not gradually shifted at an angle significant enough to be visible in a limestone shelf that was supposed to be geologically stable. The tilt angles recorded inside the blue hole suggest a rotational seismic event that has no confirmed equivalent in the geological record of this region. No earthquake of sufficient magnitude to produce that displacement appears in the historical record for this part of the Caribbean shelf. What moved the blue hole and when and why it left no trace in the surrounding geology has not been answered. The stalactites are still hanging there at their wrong angles, in water they were never supposed to be in. The next mystery has never been fully explained, and even modern technology struggles to understand it. Number 6. The compass anomaly navigation equipment does not lie. It responds to physical forces, magnetic fields generated by the Earth's core, modulated by mineral deposits and geological structures in the surrounding terrain. When a compass produces an anomalous reading, something physical is causing it. The instrument is not malfunctioning. It is detecting something that the surrounding environment it is not supposed to contain. Inside the Great Blue Hole, navigation equipment consistently produces readings that deviate from surface calibrations. This has been recorded across multiple independent expeditions, using different instruments carried by different teams in different years. The deviation is not dramatic enough to disorient a prepared diver. It is consistent enough that it cannot be attributed to equipment error, interference from dive gear, or random variation. It has been noted in expedition logs, flagged as anomalous, and set aside without formal explanation each time. Magnetic anomalies at this scale typically indicate one of two things: unusual mineral deposits in the surrounding rock or subsurface geological features that are generating or redirecting magnetic force in ways the surface geology does not account for, neither has been confirmed inside the blue hole. The rock composition of the surrounding limestone shelf does not contain the mineral concentrations that would be required to produce a deviation of this consistency. The anomaly is strongest at the center of the hole, directly above the deepest mapped chamber, directly above the point where the upward current originates, where the sonar has returned its most unusual signals, where the walls angle inward towards something below the floor that no instrument has yet characterized. Every anomaly recorded inside the blue hole is strongest at the same point. That is either a coincidence or it is not. We are getting closer to the deepest chamber, where explorers encountered something no expedition expected. Number 5. The unmapped chamber. In 2018, Aquatica Submarines conducted the most technologically advanced survey of the blue hole ever attempted. The equipment was modern, the sonar resolution was higher than any prior expedition achieved, and the goal was straightforward: to produce the most complete map of the structure's interior that had ever existed. What the sonar returned was not what the team expected to find. Below the mapped floor of the blue hole, below the depth that every prior survey had identified as the bottom of the structure, the sonar identified a void, a chamber whose upper boundary sat beneath what had previously been recorded as solid sediment, whose walls extended downward at angles the surface map had no entry for, and whose floor the sonar could not resolve into a clean return signal. That last detail is the one that stayed in the expedition logs without explanation. A sonar system capable of mapping the structure of the hole to a resolution that prior technology could not achieve produced. At the floor of the unmapped chamber, a return signal that the team's analysts could not classify as sediment, rock, or water. The density signature did not match any of the three. The chamber has not been physically reached. No submersible has descended into it. No diver has approached it. Its dimensions have been estimated from sonar data alone, and those estimates have not been published in a form that has been peer-reviewed or formally confirmed. What the sonar found beneath the floor of the blue hole is recorded in the expedition's documentation. What it means has not been addressed in any public statement by any member of that team. Most people think the blue hole is just a giant sinkhole, but its darkest secret is still waiting at the bottom. Number 4. The diver's graveyard. The blue hole has a reputation among experienced divers that the tourism industry does not advertise. They call it the graveyard. People have descended into it and not returned. Not as a historical footnote from the early days of recreational diving, when equipment was unreliable and training was inconsistent, but across the full span of the hole's documented dive history, in conditions ranging from ideal to controlled, with experienced and certified divers carrying modern equipment. The blue hole has taken people who knew what they were doing and did not give them back. Some of those remains have been found. The anoxic water below the hydrogen sulfide layer, the dead zone, where oxygen cannot survive, preserves what enters it. Bodies recovered from that depth have been found in states of preservation that at the surrounding water temperature and chemistry alone do not account for. The environment below 90 meters inside the blue hole does not behave the way standing anoxic water typically behaves. The number of confirmed disappearances inside the hole does not match the number of remains that have been recovered. The accounting does not close. There are divers who went in and have not been accounted for in any form. No equipment recovered, no remains located, no debris found at any surveyed depth. Several of the disappearances share a detail that appears in the incident reports without explanation. Equipment belonging to divers who did not return has been recovered at depths shallower than the point where the diver was last confirmed. The gear descended with the diver. It was found above where the diver was last seen. Something moved it, or something moved them. The next discovery is one of the main reasons experienced divers call this place an underwater graveyard. Number 3. The current that runs the wrong way. Water does not move upward without a reason. In an enclosed underwater structure, a sealed cave system, an anoxic basin, a flooded sinkhole with no active inlet, the water is largely static. What movement exists is driven by tidal influence from above, by temperature gradients between layers, by the slow settling of sediment. These are passive forces. They produce slow, predictable, measurable drift. They do not produce upward currents of measurable velocity originating from depth. Inside the blue hole, water flow measurements have recorded currents moving upward from the lower chambers, not drifting, moving, at velocities inconsistent with tidal influence, inconsistent with thermal convection, inconsistent with any passive force that the structure's water's physical design should be capable of generating the current pulses. It does not flow continuously. It increases, subsides, and increases again at intervals that researchers have recorded across multiple dives without identifying a pattern that matches any known geological or hydrological cycle. It behaves less like water moving through a system and more like pressure being released from one. Below the hydrogen sulfide layer, in the zone where oxygen cannot survive and visibility does not exist, something is generating enough force to push water upward through 90 meters of increasingly dense fluid and into the measurable range of dive instruments. Our static geological feature does not do that. A sealed anoxic basin does not do that. Something with active pressure behind it does that. Something that builds, releases, and builds again on a schedule that no expedition has yet stayed long enough to map. The current originates from the same point that the sonar anomaly was recorded. The same point where the compass deviation is strongest. The same point where the unmapped chamber sits below the floor. Everything inside the blue hole points at the same location, and nothing that has been sent toward that location has returned with a complete answer. The next anomaly was recorded by advanced sonar equipment, and researchers still don't agree on what it actually was. Number 2. The Sonar Anomaly. The 2018 Aquatica expedition carried sonar equipment capable of resolving objects and surfaces at a precision no prior blue hole survey had achieved. The team descended with a specific mandate to map what was there, to replace assumption with data, to produce a record of the structure's interior that would stand as the definitive account of what the blue hole actually contained. The sonar produced that map, and inside the map, inside the hydrogen sulfide layer, it recorded something that was not a wall, not a floor, and not sediment. A return signal, moving. The expedition logs note the reading without extended analysis. A large return originating from within the toxic layer at approximately 90 to 100 meters, moving laterally across the sonar's field at a velocity and in a pattern that the team's instruments recorded and the team's analysts did not classify. Not unclassified, as in unknown species. Unclassified, as in the data was logged, the movement was noted, and no formal determination was made about what produced it. The signal appeared twice, 6 hours apart, at the same depth, moving in a pattern consistent enough across both appearances that random geological activity, a shifting sediment column, a gas release, a pressure event, does not account for the repetition. Something that returns to the same depth, moves in a consistent pattern, and does so twice in 6 hours, is either a repeating mechanical process, or it is not mechanical at all. The lead researchers on the 2018 expedition have not issued a public statement specifically addressing the sonar reading. The expedition's published findings focus on the structural mapping data. The anomaly appears in the raw logs. It has not been explained. It has not been retracted. It is simply there, in the record, unaddressed. And the number one discovery is so bizarre that some experts still refuse to offer an explanation. Number 1. The bottom that doesn't answer every mystery in this video has a location attached to it. The stalactites hang at a measurable depth. The hydrogen sulfide layer sits at a confirmed elevation. The sonar anomaly was recorded at 90 to 100 meters. The unmapped chamber has estimated dimensions. Even the things that cannot be explained have coordinates. The bottom of the blue hole does not. Not because no one has tried to reach it, because nothing sent toward it has returned with data that holds together. Submersibles have approached the lower chamber and recorded instrument behavior that expedition teams have described in their logs, with careful technical language that amounts, when read plainly to, the equipment stopped agreeing with itself. Pressure readings inconsistent with depth, temperature readings inconsistent with the surrounding water. Sonar returns from the floor of the unmapped chamber, producing density signatures that match no catalog material. The 2018 expedition, the most technologically advanced survey ever conducted inside the blue hole, did not reach the bottom of the structure it was sent to map. The sonar found a chamber below the mapped floor. The chamber's floor produced a return that could not be classified. No instrument was sent further. 50 years of expeditions, technology that can map the surface of other planets, a hole in the ocean floor, 70 kilometers from a populated coastline, visited by thousands of tourists every year, declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, photographed from space. Its bottom has not been characterized. The current that runs upward from it has not been sourced. The sonar anomaly recorded moving within it has not been explained. The compass deviation that strengthens directly above it has not been accounted for. The chamber below its floor has not been entered. 5 unresolved phenomena. 1 location, and every expedition that has gone looking for the answer has come back with the same result. More questions than it went in with. The blue hole is still there, 300 meters wide, 120, 5 meters deep at minimum. The hydrogen sulfide layer is still sitting at 5 meters, pale and motionless, blocking everything below it from everything above it. The current is still moving upward from a source no instrument has reached. The sonar anomaly has not been explained. The unmapped chamber has not been entered. The compass still deviates most strongly at the center, directly above the point where every unresolved question in this video converges. No expedition has gone back to that specific location with a specific intention of answering what is there. The water above it is perfectly still. The circle from space is still perfect. Whatever is at the bottom has been there longer than anyone has been looking, and it has not moved toward the surface once.